Welcome to Meldon Law and Friends. I'm Jeffrey Meldon, your host and founder of Meldon Law, an attorney. I'm still actively working. We're having a blast at Meldon Law. We've got a really great team, and it makes it fun for me so I can come out here and interview really neat people and bring new perspectives to you. Actually, today we've got a great person who's doing some innovative things with regard to mortgage financing and how to help you get into a home, among other things. So we're going to have our good friend Eric Eckenroth, visionary founder and owner of Stressless Mortgage, coming up. But if you're interested in real estate and mortgages like I am, this is going to be fascinating. I really want to hear what Eric has to say and how AI is actually turning around the mortgage industry. First, I want to mention a few other things. Today is a big deal here at Spurrier's Gridiron Grill. The award for the first year, the best first-year coach in college football in the whole country is going to be awarded. Jamie Chadwell from Liberty University is winning that award and is going to be honored by the several hundred people here at Spurrier's Gridiron Grill. And the legend coach for an entire career, we're honoring Mark Richt, who coached at Georgia as well as Miami. And Mark has a very interesting story as well. So we're looking forward to what's going on here at Spurrier's Gridiron Grill. If you haven't been out here, you got to come here. We're here in the podcast room. They're going to be using this room all day long, interviewing some pretty well-known famous people and see what we can do to make for a great event honoring people that truly deserve it. Things going on. Gator baseball is rocking and rolling. Second weekend at Condren Ballpark, the Gators swept Columbia, which I guess was preordained, since Columbia is not that great of a sports school. However, it was some good warm-up for our Gator baseball team, ranked number 4 in the country. So let's show them some love and have a great time out at the ballpark. Gator gymnastics, wow. Last Friday night, they beat the number 2 team in the country, LSU. And wow, they set a record this year for their highest score. And the reason our scores keep getting better and better in gymnastics is because we have a lot of freshmen, young players that are on the team, and jumping from high school into college is a huge deal, and it takes them 5 or 6 or 7 meets in order to get acclimated to the higher level of skill. So everything's going good for Gator gymnastics. The men's basketball team, great, won against Vanderbilt. Now we're moving on to the end of the season, getting ready to March 12th, 13th, I believe. We start SEC championship up in Nashville. So lots of fun things going on as far as sports. And women's softball, don't forget them. They're also a top 15 program. So let's support our Gator athletes and have a good time while we do it. Couple other things. Rum Spring Boogie. We've got that's going on at Fort White, Florida, April 7th. It's a Sunday from 10 to 8, and it should be nice and warm by then. And for those of you that know the area out there, you know what rum, it's called Rum 138 in Fort White. but it's going to be bands and parties and having a great time, having a good time, celebrating America's greatest rock and roll bands. So let's see what's going on. Anyhow, a lot of other things going on at Meldon Law. Our team has been really focused in on the client experience for the last year, trying to develop our team so that no matter who you contact, if you've been involved in an accident and are injured, Meldon Law is going to help you out. We'll figure out how to answer all your questions, and if you need us to assist you in your case, we'll be there. You can get a hold of us at 352-373-8000 or go to meldonlaw.com. We've got some great books, consumer guides that you can read about what to do if you're involved in an accident. I lay it all out. I tell you exactly what goes on behind the scenes. The book's called 7 Mistakes That Can Wreck Your Florida Accident Case, and it's a must-have if you've been in an accident because it'll tell you how to go about selecting a law firm, whether or not you need a law firm. If you don't need a law firm, how do you handle the situation yourself? So let's see what we can do to educate everybody. Another book that we wrote had to do with what kind of car insurance do you need? Buying Florida auto insurance is really succinct, short consumer guide that lets you know how to go about getting the best car insurance at the lowest rate. So go to meldonlaw.com and you'll see all of that available. We're going to take a short break, and then we're going to come back with our special guest for today, Eric Eckenroth. Thank you very much.
Jeffrey, what are you doing?
Well, I'm joining the band, of course. Since Meldon Law is the official law firm partner of the Florida Gators, I want to help.
Dad, we're litigators. Let's stick to helping people in the courtroom.
Well, can we still hang out and jam a little bit? At Meldon Law, we won't back down.
I was going down a one-way street and a girl that was driving her car T-boned me on my scooter. I ended up going for an MRI and discovering that I had 2 herniated discs. Coming to Cary allowed me to not have to worry about what doctor I was going to see or what physical therapist I had to go to. They say, these are the people we trust. You're going to have a great experience there. And I honestly did each time.
Call Meldon Law. Your consultation is absolutely free.
I was driving behind a lady, and very suddenly she moved out of the way. There was a log laying in the road, and when I hit my brakes, I went on top of the log. I had 2 herniated discs. I just haven't been the same since. Jeffrey Meldon fought for me all the way. Him and his team really went there for me. Throughout the whole lawsuit, he made sure that my bills was paid. It was never no whenever I called him and asked him for something.
Call Meldon Law right now.
And I was in an accident. Someone ran a red light and hit me, and I was hurt. You don't know where to turn. Luckily, I called Jeffrey. These big insurance companies, they don't want you to win. They truly don't. But Jeffrey and his firm and the people that work here, they just really fight for you. You call the law offices of Jeffrey Meldon because you're going to need help, and they will help you.
Call Meldon Law right now.
Hey, Sammy, look who's there. Say hi.
Hey!
You again!
Meldon Law, Jeffrey speaking.
Jeffrey!
Somebody else hit us here.
Yeah.
Here we go again.
Welcome back to Meldon Law and Friends. I'm Jeffrey Meldon, founder and attorney at Meldon Law, and I've got our good friend Eric Eckenroth here. who's in the mortgage business. Welcome to the show, Eric. How you doing?
Good. Thank you for having us.
Yeah, we were just chatting about Eric's background. You're originally from Pennsylvania.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And how long you been in Florida?
About 25 years now.
Yeah. So what inspired you to move down to Florida?
Well, it was actually, unfortunately, my parents divorcing, so they, they ended up, just a life change, and I moved down and never looked back.
Yeah. Well, I moved from Cleveland, Ohio, and the reason I moved down here is because I like the weather better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's definitely a benefit.
Especially during winters like we're having, right?
Yeah.
And you see what's going on up north, and it's
No snow here.
No snow here. Well, it's really kind of interesting. So I understand you had a background in the banking industry, right?
Yeah, when I left college, I was an electrical engineering student. So when I graduated, most of the positions were in the military. So they wanted me to design missiles and do that type thing, and kind of had a morality issue, and just said was looking for work, and a friend gave me a chance in the mortgage business, and I've been doing it ever since leaving college.
So you were working in a banking with a bank or a mortgage company?
Yeah, I started with small banks and then worked my way up to managing a Wachovia mortgage, and before they closed, and then most recently with PNC before I opened Stressless Mortgage.
Okay, so what are some of the lessons you learned as a mortgage in the mortgage industry on the banking side?
Yeah, the more I thought about it, the bank is really after the housing relationship. And mortgage was always an ancillary product to them. They wanted the checking accounts. They wanted car loans. They wanted that thing. And mortgage for banks historically has always lost money. It's always been the redheaded stepchild. So banks don't spend a lot of money. They'd never invested a lot in their mortgage platforms. So it was always what I found was a lot of unqualified people, a lot of people making decisions that really had no history in the mortgage experience. It was a teller that got upgraded to mortgage because they thought it would be a neat job. And that was one of the big reasons I left.
So what motivated you as far as finding solutions for people?
When I left the bank, that was really the driving force for that, because I had literally, people would walk into the bank thinking, oh, I'm going to get a mortgage. And even, long-term doctors would walk in the bank, try to get a loan, and the bank would hassle them and end up turning them down. And in a bank, even in the mortgage department, you're on commission. So it's when you're turning away what you feel is a good loan and sending it down the street to go somewhere else that somebody else would give them the money, you just start to realize I'm in a very small box here. And the bank's really not set up to help the majority of the working class.
It's very interesting you say that, Eric, because I grew up in the home building industry. Mm-hmm. And I actually, from the time I was 13, I went out selling homes with my dad. Mm-hmm. And we built communities of homes up in the Cleveland area. Okay. And it was interesting because getting people qualified was a challenge. Mm-hmm. A lot of the homes that my dad would write contracts on, they were contingent upon them selling their other home, mm-hmm. which meant somebody else had to get qualified for the other home in order to make it happen. And so if you sold 100 homes, about 25 of them would wash out because of the contingencies mm-hmm. Involved in it. So getting qualified to buy a home is actually, one of the most important services you can do for families.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we found that, now in the broker world, there's a lot more lenders and a lot more access to loan products that may not fit in the bank. Somebody that comes in as a self-employed business owner that can't report their income, a bank would just send that away. They'd say, I'm sorry, we can't help you. And it's really a specialty that we have to help, a lot of people that are just outside that box.
Yeah, I think that the big banks tended to have certain criteria, and they didn't want to really expand that criteria to open it up to more people. They weren't in the business of taking a risk.
Yeah, I think historically, they've always been a lot tighter in the credit criteria and the numbers that they'd allow for the income, the income qualifications than what a broker ever would. So we're starting to see the broker environment pick up a lot more market share from banking, where banking used to be, 90%, 100%. Well, the brokers have taken 30, almost 40% now. So we're starting to see a shift in, where people are actually getting the loans, which, is really how it should be.
Yeah, I mean, as a smaller business, you're able to meet the needs of people, and because you have a broad inventory of folks that will fund mortgages, you aren't locked into just one company.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk about that. When somebody comes in, what's the process for them talking about their situation, what they want, and then you going about finding the right fit for them?
Well, I think from altitude, when I open Stress Less Mortgage, the process is always difficult. The mortgage process, I mean, you can talk to anybody and they've had some horror story about how when they applied or just how they were handled, or the bank, asked them for 500 documents and then lost those and then had to ask for the same thing again. So it was very important to me to make the process much easier. So a lot of electronic methods are available now where we can verify employment, we can verify their assets without collecting a pay stub, without collecting a document, where they can sign a couple electronic things for us, and then we're going to go chase down the documents for them to qualify. So we really, at every turn, whether that's phone calls, text message, different methods to just make it easier to, communicate where people are. Perfect example, when a bank would call and you had a working family, the bank was only open from 9 to 5. They won't communicate with a client after, 6 p.m. So, I have a lot of clients, we talk at 10 o'clock at night, just making sure that they're comfortable. This is what we need, that they're out of work. And then that's the time when we're really moving forward to help that client get the home of their dreams.
Yeah. Banker's hours was a term I grew up with. What were banker's hours anyhow? I don't think they were 9 to 5. I think they were like 10 to 4 or something.
9 to 4, and then an hour for lunch. So
right. Or maybe an hour and a half for lunch because it was a business meeting. And no, I mean, bankers really had the reputation of, well, they had the money and people would figure out how to get to them whenever they were there in the office working. And I always thought starting out as a young attorney, I was always fascinated with the fact that bankers worked less than most people, at least hours.
Yeah, I think that was the biggest thing that I noticed is a lot of times the bank would, people would think, oh, that's the best place to go get a mortgage. And, when you're dealing under those time constraints in a working family that they can't even communicate during the day with the banker, it just makes the process close to impossible.
Now, we're talking about the process, I bought different properties, homes, or law offices, rental properties, and I've gone through the process a number of times myself, and thank God I had a bookkeeper, because what a pain in the butt. I mean, it's like for somebody who has they have a job and they're working and they save. They may save the stubs that come in from their employer and then some from other banking relationships. But for most people, they don't really have a cabinet that's organized to provide all that information. How do you go about helping people deal with that reality?
Well, a lot of it is, the electronic method. So when we notice a larger employer, if somebody works for an Advent hospital or a a law office or somebody that uses electronic methods, that they may put their employment records in with Equifax or ADP. So what happens is that client can come in and we can get electronic access with their approval, and then where we can actually access their pay stubs, their W-2s, their tax documents from their accountant if they allow us, where we can literally import, their whole file in a matter of 20 seconds.
Yeah, I mean, for what it's worth, you cannot get a loan without showing your income tax returns, except under very unusual
Well,
circumstances.
some of the new loans, I disagree with you there, because I think some of the new loans, I have clients, unfortunately, that they haven't filed a tax document in 10 plus years. That we help them, buy their new home.
So do they have to put up a larger down payment in
Sure,
situations?
sure.
Yeah, I mean, if you come in, you say, I'll put 50 or 60% or down, or even 40% down, then the bank evaluates. Or when I say bank, I mean the mortgage company or whatever. They evaluate it using a different matrix.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think at that point they're more credit score driven, and it generally at 20% down that loosens up the bank criteria. So.
Okay. So if you have a decent credit score and you're willing to put 20 to 30% down, that opens up avenues even if you haven't been filing tax returns.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's amazing how many people don't file tax returns. A lot of times they don't file them because they don't owe money and they just don't want to spend the money or the time to put them together. Sometimes they're small businesses and there's really no profit. However, generally it's a good idea to file a tax return, even if it's showing that you didn't make much money and you had lots of write-offs and things like that. It still is a good idea to file a tax return. And if you don't, then you can always hire someone to help you clean up the situation and go back and file them, right?
Either that or the IRS is going to come visiting.
Yeah, I mean, right now the IRS doesn't have time to go after small fries the way that they may have used to, but it's still a good idea, because by having good financial records, you really open yourself up to opportunities for investment.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
I mean, when the banks want to, decide whether to lend you money, if you have all your documents available and they come to you and they go, yeah, we have most of our stuff ready. If there's anything else, we'll go get it right away. Mm-hmm. That helps a lot, right?
It does.
Now, we were talking briefly about some of the new innovations in trying to streamline the process. For the most part, anybody out there that's gone through the mortgage application process, it's like accumulating tons of data, and then there's somebody out there that you never meet or never see that makes some decision about whether or not you're going to get a loan, and if you're going to get a loan, what the interest rate's going to be, how much you need to put down, what different programs available, and it's almost as though you really are at their mercy in some ways.
To a point. I think the guidelines are established as the lenders say, hey, this is what we'd like to have. So they're looking for certain credit criteria. They're looking for the overall loan picture. So they want to judge how much of a risk that client is. So what a lot of these lenders are adding now is the artificial intelligence engines.
Yeah, let's talk about that, because it's absolutely fascinating. In the legal industry, we have a whole team in our office figuring out how AI can help us better serve our clients. What's going on in the mortgage industry?
So in the mortgage space, now artificial intelligence is coming by storm. So in a year's time, artificial intelligence has literally increased its intelligence times 10, a tenfold. So literally went from a 16 IQ to 160 IQ. So it is learning rapidly and expected to increase even further. So literally what's happening is a client, would bring in a stack of documents, and it could be a very complicated borrower with multiple businesses and multiple bank accounts and just a lot of stuff going on. Well, a lender like myself, would have to audit that package to, hey, are we meeting that lender's criteria? And it might have taken us a week, to go through 500 documents. By the time we're going through tax returns, employment verifications and all these items to get that loan closed, it could take us a week, and, we're still in position to make a 30-day closing. But literally now you can send all that documentation into this artificial intelligence engine, and it's called Stumpy. Funny, but this is actually coming out. But what's happening is you can upload that, and then in 10 minutes, after reviewing those 500 documents, it recognizes the data, it takes all that stuff and interprets it and says, this client will qualify and this client will not qualify. So in literally a week, 10 days of time for me to audit versus a computer in 10 minutes.
Oh, so it cuts down the processing time significantly. So, and if a client, if they say this client won't qualify in the criteria, does it give you some indication of what the weak points are of the application?
Well, we've actually uploaded all of our documents, all of our lender criteria for every loan that's in our arsenal. And there's literally 600 products at this point that could be done. Mm-hmm. So it literally reads the whole data set and will say, okay, if it won't fit this one, like you said, then we can drop it into this one. And then, once it decides what's available, we can interpret that to the client and say, okay, these would be your choices. This might be what you'd think about. Let them make the decision and then move on in a very short period of time compared to, waiting a week, 10 days to review that doc set. Mm-hmm. Just the time savings is immense.
So when I started practicing law, there was this adage that if you go to a bank, they looked at the 3 C's to determine if you were going to get a loan, right? Mm-hmm. Did you ever hear the 3 C's?
Well, it's actually 4.
It is? Go ahead. Tell us of it.
Credit, capacity, collateral, and I can't remember the 4th one off the top of my head.
Character.
Yeah.
I mean, in the old days, like I walk. This is 1972, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm opening up my office, and I walk down the street, introduce the banker, and he said, I would like to borrow some money. Mm-hmm. He said, well, how much you want to borrow? I said, $10,000, which in 1972 was like $50,000, right? Mm-hmm. And he said, well, what do you want to borrow it for? I said, well, I want to speculate in real estate. Mm-hmm. He said, oh, well, that's a good reason. He said, I'll loan you the $10,000 as long as you promise to be the bank's customer with your law firm. Mm-hmm. And that sounds crazy in today's world, right? Yep. That wouldn't happen today, would it?
Absolutely.
It would?
Absolutely. Well, I mean, with all the other C's in place, I think,
Oh, so if I didn't have any credit yet. I was just a young guy and, starting out. But, however, the banker there, I think it's interesting because banker, you mentioned, sometimes a doctor might not qualify for one reason or another, but people that have a profession generally get qualified a little more easily because they have the potential for earning more and things like that. But let's talk about your company, right? Stress Less Mortgage, because the stress is the word that accompanies buying a home and getting a mortgage. Mm-hmm. So how'd you come up with that name?
My wife and I, this is a funny story, but we were, she had been on me for years about opening my own company after seeing just the day in, day out stress of what I was dealing with at the bank and, just really being unhappy. I think I was in a spot and, I'd like to think I'm a sharp guy and I know my way around, but I just was really unhappy at the bank. And she saw me struggling, and she said, why don't you just do this for yourself? Open up a business and, do it yourself. Mm-hmm. And we talked, and we literally sat down, and we wrote out 5 or 6 different names that, and she had her favorites, and I had my favorite. And of course, at the end of the day, it was my decision to make. So I chose Stress Less Mortgage, and because I think at the end of the day, my mission statement is really about making the process simple. Where I don't want that stress on the borrower. I do everything behind the scenes to make that process super easy, and where that client walks through and says, "Wow, that was a much." Because I think you were saying, hey, I've had some mortgages, and it was a tough process, and I had to get my bookkeeper, and I don't want to have to go through all that hardship to get the loan that should really, at the end of the day, be easy to make.
Well, I think that's great. I mean, number one, it's an easy name to remember, right?
Absolutely.
And number two, everybody who applies for a mortgage wants less stress, right?
Agreed.
And so how do people get a hold of you?
As part of the digital footprint, we have a link. There's a pre-approval link that those working people that if they're not comfortable and they want to just reach out to us. There's actually an artificial intelligence bot that we have trained that has all our guidelines and can literally communicate and set appointments.
Really?
And
Wow.
it's amazing.
Well, okay. Now you're located in Bellevue,
Correct.
right? Bellevue, Florida. It's called Stress Less Mortgage. What's your phone number there?
It's 352-572-9060 is my cell. And of course, we have the website. It's www.stresslessmortgage.net. And then, any client wants to reach out to us, we can send the link. They can test out our bot. We'd love to have people's feedback and test it out and see if they can break it. That's what we're working through at the moment.
So any of you out there that are interested, just remember you can always Google Stress Less Mortgage, right? And you will find it. It's in Bellevue. And what market area do you service?
For the most part, our license carries all of Florida and all of Georgia. We'll actually do some investments all across the country, investment properties. So if you were trying to buy a condo or a mountain home in the mountains, we could help you there too. Just not primary residences outside Florida and Georgia.
So it's amazing how the mortgage industry is changing. It probably, with AI, it's going to make a greater change in the mortgage industry than has ever occurred.
I think the speed. I think the speed is going to, the average closing time is actually, in the broker channel, is actually better than the bank. It's literally, we're at 21 days and increasing rapidly.
You know why? Because you guys are in private enterprise and you've got the okay, we need to, get these loans closed and get, you get revenue and then you move on to the next one and all that.
Yeah, I think the truth is we have better tools. The bank, just came out, Rocket Mortgage. I think the biggest retail lender in the country. They literally, their mortgage department lost almost $500 million last year.
And why would that be?
Mortgage is an ancillary. Rocket has come out with a bunch of other companies under their umbrella where they've started investing their money to make their balance sheet look good. But what's happened is when they can't sell loans off, and they get stuck with servicing, and some loans, unfortunately after COVID, it's just back into a non-performing market where those loans are sitting and they have to cover so much in loan losses. So we're noticing a big shift again, and that's why I think Rocket was the number one lender and now they're not.
Well, I think it's changing. The new tools are going to make things quicker. I know that your processors, right? You won't need as much overhead in processing if you have the tools. And that was a holdup because literally, every time I'd ever ask for a mortgage, there's the loan processor and they're busy, and then they give you a list of things to do, and you go back and forth for 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 weeks or longer, right? Yep. So what we want everybody out there to understand is if you call Stress Less Mortgage, talk to Eric Eckenroth. He will explain to you how to move things along really quickly. In fact, his website actually has a feature where you can download certain information and get a good idea of what you could qualify for.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's different pre-approval links and the mortgage calculators. There's a bunch of great stuff on there. And so our blog post will actually come up next week. So, there'll be a lot of great content for, everybody to go in and, learn about everything. First-time home buyers, different down payment assistance programs, just different things that we could do to help the average person.
Well, I think that's great. Right now, it's challenging, right? Because prices on homes went way up in the last 4 or 5 years, and interest rates are high now. Mm-hmm. So, what do you advise people? Sit on the sideline or jump in now?
Well, I think the reality is rates are starting to come down. So this is what we're noticing. Rates are coming down. But the thing that we advise our clients is the home prices aren't going to drop. The home prices aren't going to drop anytime soon. So, if you look back at the last 20 years, real estate, even in our local market, real estate's risen at, 5% plus per year. So if you track that, a difference in rate, the good thing is you marry the house, but you date the rate. So there's always options to. Oh,
right. You can refinance. Yeah, our office manager just bought her first home, and they were so excited, and they had to finance at a certain rate. However, they made provisions to refinance it down the road, a year or 2, 3 from now. When rates will probably come down 1%, 1.5% over the next 2 years or so is my guess. And if that happens, there's always a way to go back and refinance.
Always.
Is there? I've heard that you want to make sure you recoup the cost of refinancing in a 3 to 5 year period. Is that?
I think everybody's situation is a little different. I think overall, from a tactical standpoint, we like to see if it's not at least 0.5% of savings. We generally don't even like to talk about it because it just doesn't make up the common sense. But
right. 1% does.
Yeah, 1%,
generally
yeah,
for a long, particularly for a home where you're planning on staying in for a while.
Yeah.
But if you're planning on staying there for 2 or 3 more years, it doesn't make sense to refinance.
Well, I think what we find is there's a lot of people that have been paying on their mortgage for some time, and they have it paid down where they only owe $75,000, $50,000, and to refinance at that point, where unless they're saving a substantial percent or more, it just doesn't make sense. But every situation is different, and we just give the figures, and if the customer decides, we'd love to help them.
Well, that's great. I'm so glad that you came on the show today, Eric. It helps all of us, just about everybody, listening or watching, is going to have a mortgage situation sometime in their life. And it's really good to have somebody who's on the cutting edge to help you find the right mortgage for you, because what I hear you saying is like there's tons of different companies that specialize in different products at different rates, and don't give up. If you're interested in a home, you live in Florida, and in Florida the chance of the prices going down more than 3 or 4 or 5% are very slim. And they're going to bounce back eventually. So really what you're trying to look at is the right mortgage product for you in order to get into the home of your dreams and enjoy it while you're still alive, because you don't want to wait forever.
Right.
Right. I guess the message is, if you're waiting for prices to go down 15% and mortgage rates to get back into the 3s, you may not see that again in your lifetime.
It was a perfect storm, so it may be another 20, 25 years until we see something like that.
So folks, if you want to get in touch with Eric, it's Stress Less Mortgage. He is on the cutting edge of finding the best product at the best price for you. And thank you very much for joining us.
Well, thank you for having me.
That's a wrap on another edition of Meldon Law and Friends. Thank you for joining us.